Hey everyone, what's going on? Thanks for tuning back into Relevant Jukebox, and today we're going to talk about the newest album from Declan McKenna, Zeros. So this is the sophomore full-length album from the English-born singer-songwriter, and I mean, this dude is actually really young. He's 21 years old, and this is his second full-length album here with a major label deal at Columbia. And over here in the US, I mean, I haven't really heard too much buzz about him up until this point, but maybe this new album will change that because I do think it's pretty good. Now, this album cover can be slightly misleading, at least the first time I saw it, but after listening to the whole record, it makes a lot more sense because this is actually a rock album that seems to draw its influence from bands in the 60s, also glam rock of the 70s, but with a modern twist to it. David Bowie seems to be a main inspiration point for him, especially with all those spacey themes and aesthetics across this LP, but also modern rock bands like Cage the Elephant or even like MGMT or Deer Hunter come to mind as well. And I guess you could point out that he does wear his influences on his sleeve a little bit and actually plays it a little bit too close to the chest with some of those other acts I just listed. However, I think this kid has a pretty good knack for writing songs, honestly, that overcame a lot of that for me. And I'm glad that I gave this album a little bit more time to marinate on, honestly, because a lot of the stranger qualities to this record are not obvious at first. And they kind of sink in over time like you're peeling back layers of an onion. And he certainly seems to be like a maximalist when it comes to songwriting in general, as like this whole album feels like it's been labored over and almost like he's trying to do a little bit too much at times, honestly. I do really like the way the album kicks off with the track You Better Believe. I get huge Cage the Elephant vibes off of this track, and the recording itself sounds pretty raw, almost like it was live in the moment. But I guess, I mean, the whole album in general, but I do like that quality a lot. However, the second track does kind of stop you in its pacing and its mood as like a really slow burning ballad that I do think might have been a little bit too early on in the track list. I wish that he swapped this cut with Beautiful Faces in the order of the track list because, you know, all the momentum that he builds on the first cut I think would have carried over and translated nicely into Beautiful Faces, because that track is really catchy. I do think it has one of the catchier moments on the whole record with its chorus. And I like the really like weird spacey flavor that it has with those layers of the vibrant synthesizers that come through and drum hits that sound really big. Now, another moment where he slows it down just a little bit on the record is with the track Emily. He has a really catchy vocal performance on this track that he really wants to hammer in your head. He kind of repeats the same melody over and over, and it's a pretty big standout overall. However, the track that he built around it is very jumbled, as like when you get to the middle of it, it kind of meanders a bit. Now, the track that follows this one, Twice Your Size, is a spot on the record where he toys very closely with sounding a lot like MGMT. Those chord progressions and the tempo of the song paired with those synthesizers are like a dead ringer. But, you know, it doesn't really bother me too much. I think it's a pretty decent song, and I really like how it picks up towards the end with a huge rush of instrumentation that comes in. And the track Sagittarius A ended up being a pretty big standout for me on the LP and kind of sounds like, you know, the best Deer Hunter song that Deer Hunter didn't write. The chorus on that track sounds like it was lifted directly off of Micro Castle, honestly. But again, I mean, the song has a really good hook on it, and I think it's just pretty enjoyable overall, so it didn't really bother me too much. And he closes out the record with probably the strangest track, with Eventually Darling. He kind of takes a risk of sorts with that transition that happens twice, where the whole tempo changes and then his vocals get pitch shifted up and they get really kind of whacked out sounding. I'm kind of glad he didn't like toy with that too much on this album. However, I do think he still has some more room to kind of play around with those ideas a little bit. Because leaving this record, I suppose, like, I don't think his vision is fully realized just yet, even though it's like really close. I think he could enhance some of those like spacey, dreamlike qualities in the instruments on the record a little bit to kind of give it more personality. And yes, some of the tracks do kind of meander a little bit. He could have trimmed some of the fat on them, but other than that, I thought this was a pretty solid album, because like it just seems like nowadays like rock releases in this style are very few and far between. So when they come out and they're good, I definitely suggest checking them out. And with that being said, I'm feeling an 8.5 over here on Zeros. Now, for all you collectors out there, there are actually a ton of different variants floating around if you want to collect this album. He had a couple limited pre-orders that went up on his website. There was a glow in the dark, but also a clear with purple and blue splatter, and both of them have sold out. There's also a Spotify exclusive, which is kind of random. It's on a purple marble press, and then there's also a picture disc floating around out there that I believe Sony put out. What's up on his website now is the standard black issued vinyl, which is what I picked up, hoping that, you know, maybe it just sounds the best. And if you listen to Zeros, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and share, and if you want more content from me, hit that subscribe button. Peace.